The episode continues at the next day's dawn when Vasily is in his dream half awake and half asleep. As Vasily read Plutarch's biography last night, he dreams of Plutarch and Herodotus coming into his dream. Since Vasily is now the new president of Ukraine, Plutarch and Herodotus discuss how Vasily will run the country's economic system in Vasily's dream, as Ukraine is facing default and a financial crisis. Vasily is restless because of his country's rampant corrupt politicians and bureaucrats. Both historians are in a dilemma about possible reforms Vasily can bring to improve the country's economy. Herodotus then points out Ukraine being in the center of Europe and the globe, to Plutarch whispering a faint indication that Ukraine should join the European Union to improve the country's economy. Plutarch tries to wake Vasily in his dream, asking him to join the European Union, but in reality his mother wakes him up. Vasily wakes up late, the same time as yesterday. But today is a different day for Vasily. Vasily's mother irons all his shirts, not knowing which shirt he would wear. Likewise, his niece polishes all his shoes, not knowing which shoes he will wear. Similarly, his father till yesterday, who wouldn't even remove the spilling pot of coffee from the burner, makes his coffee for him today. Meanwhile, his sister Svetlana returns home from work at a railway company, buzzing the doorbell. She brings a giant teddy and strawberries for her daughter Natasha, since she couldn't find a Singer Gizio CD for her birthday. While she tells Vasily to fetch a crate of strawberries from downstairs, she is in disbelief to see Singer Gizio himself in front of her. Prime Minister Yuri brings the box of strawberries from downstairs, asking Vasily if he is ready to leave. Vasily's sister Svetlana is unaware of the news of her brother being president of the country. The motorcade escorts the president's car, with Vasily and Yuri inside as they head towards to meet presidential staff from various departments. Yuri informs Vasily that they have to start preparing for the presidential inauguration day. Vasily wants to write his inauguration speech by himself, but Yuri tells Vasily not to clutter his mind as there is already staff for that work. Yuri tells Vasily to keep his mind, thoughts, and body clean. Yuri introduces Vasily to his staff from the Department of Health and Beauty. Yuri tells them to beautify Vasily to prepare him for his upcoming inauguration day, to be presentable when he meets with his counterpart and foreign dignitaries. As Vasily is getting a makeover, a trio of oligarchs watch an investigation report prepared by their associate Kravitsky, unraveling everything about Vasily. Born in 1978 and a native of Kiev, he was raised in a working-class family. He graduated high school in 1997 with the highest distinction. He enrolled in law school but soon withdrew and enrolled in the history department. He graduated with honors, and the same year he married Olga Mishchenko. A year later their son Dima was born. 2 years after, the couple got divorced over their difficult financial situation. He left the flat to his wife and child and started living with his parents. He doesn't have any assets and recently took out a loan from the bank to buy a microwave oven. He is not a member of any political party and doesn't have any bad habits. That's who he is, Vasily Petrovich. Yuri tells Vasily that Vasily will outshine everybody on his inauguration day, including Michelle Obama. Meanwhile, his family members at home are watching the news about Kiev, hosting a big-name guest like Michelle Obama for Vasily's inauguration. The online community is wondering if the woman of Vasily's family will match the attire standard of Michelle Obama. Since none of them have matching clothes for the occasion, Svetlana convinces her father to buy them clothes with the 5,000 hryvnia that he had saved to buy an inflatable boat. As they come out of the door, they are hounded by the reporters with questions about President Vasily's life. Svetlana cleverly directs the reporter toward the building caretaker, calling him the president's godfather. Then her family heads out to a shopping mall that sells fake brand name clothes. After making acquaintance with health and beauty department staff, Vasily meets with the head of various departments. He meets with the head of the Department of Foreign Policy, the head of the Department of Humanitarian Policy, and the head of the Department of Foreign Humanitarian Policy. Vasily asks Yuri if some department requires reform, but Yuri says there is already a reform department to make such reforms. So, he meets with the head of the Department of Reform. Vasily then meets with Grisha, the body double of Vasily, who serves for security reasons for the president's safety. Finally, he meets with all of his presidential advisors and authorized agents. Since none of the three oligarchs back Vasily Petrovich, they are in a panic mode, fearing if he does something out of the blue against their interest. One of the oligarchs then convinces the other two to let him live his high life as a president for the time being and decides not to intervene unless he does something against their interest. Petro keeps circling the shopping mall's parking area looking for a space to park which he does not find, and drops his family members in the middle of the parking lot, asking them not to take a long time as usual while shopping. Two traffic police officers watch the news on a commercial screen outside of the mall about the newly elected president's family, when one of them pulls over Petro for crossing over the "Do Not Enter" signboard. Petro asks the officer why he pulled him over, but the officer is speechless as he instantly recognizes Petro being the father of the country's newly elected president. The officer then informs Petro that the board is kept for experimental pilot purposes only.
Eksperymentalny on.
After meeting all his officials and departmental heads, Vasily is tired. He grudges having redundant departments and their inability to work effectively. Vasily is in doubt if the officials would qualify for the post. Yuri jokingly says those staffs are his relatives. Finally, the motorcade leaves for the former president's residence, Meshcheria. The two traffic police officers asks Petro to suggest President Vasily for upgrading their motor vehicle pool. Petro tells them you will pass every words to the president. Petro is astounded and captivated by the sight when three ladies of the house come, carrying a handful of clothes from the shopping mall accompanied by the shop owner. Petro delightedly asks his daughter Svetlana how they bought so many clothes as he had only given them 5,000 hryvnia. Svetlana returns the money to her father as they receive a 100% discount on all clothes, which are also original in brand. The shop owner then says he is honored to dress President's family. Petro wants to buy an inflatable boat with 5,000 hryvnia, but his daughter Svetlana tells him that the boat is already on its way floating towards Petro. The family thanks the shop owner for his generosity. Vasily arrives at Meshcheria, the residence of the former president. Yuri introduces Vasily to the servants of the residence. After making acquaintance with the residence servants, he wishes them goodbye, saying "До свидания."
До свидания.
До свидания, господин президент.
Vasily starts to rehearse with his trainer Nikita, under Yuri's guidance for his inauguration day. Nikita tells Vasily to keep his chin higher as he walks, when the beautiful chandelier attracts Vasily. He then instructs Vasily to smile as he approaches the rostrum to read his speech. As Vasily starts to read his speech, Nikita is not satisfied with his vocal range, so Yuri brings walnut for Vasily's aid to help him improve his vocal range. Vasily then starts to rehearse his speech with the walnut inside his mouth. As he reads further, he finds out that the speech is Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address of 1863. When Vasily stops reading, Yuri persuades Vasily, saying Lincoln's homeland will praise the speech, and later becomes easy to ask them for money, since Ukraine is in a financial crisis. Meanwhile, at home, Petro answers Slavic's parents' buzzing doorbell. Slavic is an ex-boyfriend of Natasha, who had dumped Natasha 6 months ago. Svetlana tells Slavic's parents that Natasha was heartbroken because of the breakup. Slavic asks for forgiveness, but Natasha angrily tells Slavic that it's over between them. Finally, Svetlana closes the door to Slavic's parents, saying "До свидания," when they offer Svetlana herself to marry their son Slavic.
До свидания.
Vasily starts practicing meeting lookalike leaders for a rehearsal for his inauguration day. First, he pretends to meet with the President of the United States, Barack Obama. Then he meets with Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel. Yuri informs Vasily to let German Chancellor Angela Merkel dominate the handshake, as the sheikh will decide how much aid Germany's central bank will give to Ukraine. He then meets with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Sarkozy, President of France. Yuri tells Vasily to be seated when he meets Alexander Lukashenko, President of Belarus. While Vasily is rehearsing, his ex-wife Olga calls him to remind him that today is a preset visitation schedule to meet his son Dima. Vasily asks Yuri if he can take a short break to take his son to the zoo. Yuri asks Talia, Vasily's chief security, for the security arrangement. Talia tells them that it would take 2 hours to prepare with 40 bodyguards, 5 snipers, and 1 chopper. Vasily takes his son Dima to ride animals in the shopping mall as it's raining. When asked about why he didn't take him to the zoo, he tells him that there are few animals in the zoo anyway. Dima asks his father if he still loves him the same after being president. Vasily says he loves his country, but Dima will still be number one. As Vasily and Dima enjoy their father-son's time, Talia points to his watch, indicating Vasily to wrap up the meeting. Dima wants Vasily to sign an executive order for his mother to marry his father again on his birthday. As Vasily and Olga start quarreling again, he asks them to buy inline skates instead for his birthday, saying his mind can't handle a second divorce. Vasily leaves, handing his son to his ex-wife Olga. Vasily's family at home is preparing for the dinner when Petro pours a bucket of water into Slavik, who has been sitting outside their home shouting, asking Natasha to forgive him. Vasily's mother, Maria, sets the fifth plate for Vasily as a force of habit. Maria is worried about what her son might be eating for dinner. Petro then tells her not to worry as Vasily is spoon-feeding with fine foods. Vasily is also preparing to eat his dinner in a presidential residence with Yuri on the opposite side. Nikita teaches Vasily about various sets of spoons and forks to eat a specific set of food. Nikita confuses Vasily with the spoons. The waiter serves whole fish as a meal. Vasily is confused about which spoon to pick to eat the fish. Vasily cannot figure out which spoon and fork to pick to eat the fish. Therefore, he leaves with an apple in his hand to prepare for his inauguration speech tomorrow. Vasily is preparing Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address of 1863 for his Inauguration Day speech tomorrow. Yuri enters Vasily's room, asking if he needs the First Lady for the night. Vasily asks what for and scolds Yuri for making fun of him. Yuri shows Vasily a remote if he changes his mind. Button 1 for Angela, 2 for Violetta, and 3 for Edward. Vasily tells him he is fine and wishes Yuri good night. Vasily is mentally exhausted because of his empty stomach and the stress of preparing his speech for tomorrow. Vasily answers the knocking door, thinking it's Yuri again, but since he is preparing Lincoln's speech, he hallucinates conversing with President Lincoln himself. First, both presidents greet each other with good evening. Then, Vasily hands Lincoln's speech to Lincoln himself and tells him he doesn't want to copy his speech. Lincoln then tells Vasily why he would, as he already has a famous speech on YouTube video. Next, Lincoln tells Vasily to free Ukrainians from the slavery who bust their backs, working to the bone to feed the so-called elite their houses, limousines, and mansions. Finally, Lincoln disappears, telling Vasily to be himself. Finally, today is the inauguration day of history teacher Vasily. Vasily hasn't taken office yet, but he has already started making headlines. For the first time in Ukraine, the news reporter reports that the presidential inauguration won't take place in Parliament, but in the House of Teachers, as a profound symbol of Vasily being a history teacher before. Yuri scolds Talia, asking how Vasily could have ditched the motorcade. Talia then informs Yuri that Vasily asked him to leave, saying he doesn't need security in the motorcade. Vasily comes to his inauguration in a cab. The honor guard salutes him, and a confused Vasily starts to head for the rostrum, taking a different route to give his speech. Vasily starts to read Lincoln's speech, when his past flashes before him suddenly. The time is a few days after Vasily has finished registering his name on the election board with the crowdfunded money, which he had received from his student. While Vasily is teaching, students ask him how he will address the nation on his inauguration day and ask him to rehearse in front of them. Vasily then tells who will vote for him, but students tell Vasily what if they do. Student tells Vasily, what if their teacher starts babbling, chattering gibberish in front of the nation while they feel ashamed? Finally, the student convinces Vasily to rehearse for his inauguration day. They instruct Vasily to keep his hand in the register, assuming it to be the Bible for some time. Student then tells him to be honest, use his own word, and not make any fake promises while addressing the nation. Galatov demonstrates a leg clap and asks Vasily to do the same while closing the speech, but Vasily tells only if Galatov submits his report on the Zaforian fort. President Vasily starts to address the nation with his own words. He makes fun of how history teacher created history by being the country's president. Vasily says he doesn't want to make a fake promise, but he can make one. He promises his people that he will act in a way that doesn't evoke shame when looking into his children's eyes or his parents or the people of Ukraine. Galatov gestures towards Vasily to do a leg clap by showing him the report on the Zaforian fort. The episode ends with Vasily's leg clap.
Дорогі українці, після перемоги на виборах мій 6-річний син сказав: «Пап, я по телевізору бачив, кажуть, що Зеленський президент. Виходить, що я теж президент». І тоді це прозвучало як жарт дитячий. Але згодом я зрозумів, що насправді це істина. Тому що кожен з нас президент. Не 73%, які за мене голосували, а всі 100% українців. Це не моя, це наша спільна перемога. Європейська країна починається з кожного. Так, ми обрали шлях до Європи. Але Європа не десь там. Європа, вона ось тут. І коли Європа буде ось тут, вона буде ось тут. Вона буде в Україні. Історія несправедлива, це правда. Не ми почали цю війну. Не ми почали, але нам цю війну закінчувати. Не було моїх зображень. Не було, будь ласка, моїх портретів. Бо президент не ікона, не ідол. Президент – це не портрет. Повісьте туди фотографії своїх дітей. І перед кожним рішенням дивіться їм в очі. І наостанок, дуже коротко. Дорогий народе, протягом свого життя я намагався робити все, щоб українці посміхалися. Це я відчував так серцем. Це була не тільки моя робота, правда, це була моя місія. Наступні 5 років я зроблю все, українці, щоб ви не плакали. Дякую.